So it's 12 o'clock European time. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our webinar on managing liquidity in times of COVID-19. Today is our first webinar organized by the Globally Group and the start of more webinars to be conducted from now on. My name is Matthias Niehaus, partner of the NHS Group in Germany, and I'm currently president of the Globally Group. Please let me give you some key facts about the Globally Group. We are a group of independent firms in accounting, payroll services, tax consulting, and other consulting services. Together with our members and associated partners, we cover more than 40 countries in Europe, Asia, and North and South America. The COVID-19 crisis hit Europe beginning of March, just when we had our last Globally Network meeting held in Vienna. Most members did not reach the meeting because of travel restrictions. The rest were lucky to get home from Vienna just before the lockdown started. Since then, life and business have changed a lot, and the work for us consultants and our clients was very much dominated by that. The European Union was not prepared for that, and a harmonized approach was not reachable. So, as a result, all countries in the EU took their own approach with own measures to support the local businesses. Now, as the situation is relaxing, hopefully in a sustainable way, business is improving, but still the consequences must be managed on the way back to a normal situation. To give a little bit of an overview about the situation in some key countries of the European Union, I'm very happy to introduce to you great colleagues and friends from our network members in Italy, France, Spain, and Germany. A little bit about the speakers today. Riccardo Marinelli, our first speaker today, is partner of our Italian network member LG Consulting based in Rome. LG Consulting specializes in a wide range of services to international companies in Italy. The professionals of LG Consulting have extensive experience in financial reporting to foreign parent companies on the basis of group accounting policies, US GAAP, and IFRS. The speaker team from France consists of Jean-Benoit Monet, partner of Orcom in Paris, vice president of the Globally Group, and Charlotte de Guigné, manager in the International and Labor Law Department. Orcom supports entrepreneurs throughout the life of their project with a tailored approach, providing advisory, accounting, and auditing services. With approximately 800 professionals in 30 offices in France and 8 offices in China, USA, and UK, Orcom is a well-known and respected firm, not only in France. From Spain, we are very happy to have Marcel Miró, Fabian Mozo, and Nicolas Cachin with us. Marcel is partner and founder of PBS. Fabian is senior manager at PBS with 19 years of experience in accounting and financial consultancy for international clients. He is an expert in finance, corporate accounting, and taxation. He has extensive experience in real estate investments as well as subsidiaries of multinational companies. In recent years, his activities have been focused not only on tax, but also on supervising the accounting and reporting for various European investment funds. Nicola has worked as PBS as payroll and HR consultant for the past 7 years. She has extensive experience in this area after having managed payroll in Spain for over 16 years. Nicola specializes in guiding international clients throughout their whole payroll process, from onboarding employees and processing their monthly payroll, including giving detailed attention to special tax issues that may arise, such as taxation of expats and non-Spanish tax residents, to preparing final settlements when necessary. Last but not least, I'm also very happy to introduce my 2 colleagues and managers, Katharina Knollenborg and Dominik Vonenberg from our Düsseldorf office. Both are certified tax advisors in Germany and are guiding local and international clients of the NHS Group with accounting and tax matters. During the COVID-19 crisis, they have managed the support of all NHS Group clients with regard to tax reliefs short-time work, and many other issues. So before we begin here, a few instructions for the webinar. Please note that all participants will be in listen-only mode throughout the webinar. If you have questions or comments, please put them in the questions section in the chat. The presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. Also, a link with a recording to this webinar will be emailed to you tomorrow afternoon, including the email addresses of all speakers in case of further questions after the webinar. So let's start. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hand over to you, Ricardo.
Thank you, Matthias. Good morning to everyone. As said by Matthias, I'm representing LNG, our company located in Rome, founded in year 2000. We are more or less 50 people working, 50 workers, professional and others. And our area is accounting, tax, payroll, as already Matthias told us. Okay, let's go. I know I have 15 minutes more or less, so let's go immediately on the topics. I have 6 points on my agenda, which is maybe 5 points because one is not operative yet. The first one is the IRAP cancellation. What is IRAP? IRAP is the regional tax in Italy. Is the rate can change because every region can apply their own rate. The range is from 3 to 5%. And what is happening that the balance payment to close the year 2019 is completely cancelled. Company shall not pay for this, and as well the first advance in Italy we pay 2 advance, 50% now in June, July, another 50% in November. Also the first advance year 2020 is completely cancelled. So it's a concrete help to every company. Well, maybe the problem is this, is that it's given to everyone, even who had no problem with the COVID or had a strong 2019. But indeed, it is an help, a concrete help. Okay, we can move to slide number 2. Non-refundable contribution. Go over number 2. Okay. Okay, this is another concrete contribution. The way of calculating it is different. The first test is the decrease of the revenue that must be more than 1/3, and the month is April. So we have to compare April 2019 and April 2020. If there is a decrease of the revenues more than 1/3, small companies, because we're talking of companies that have less than 5 million revenues, can have a contribution. How much is the contribution? There are 3 rates: 20% from 0 to 400,000 revenue, 15 from 400 to 1 million, 10% from 1 to 5 million. These rates are applied on the decrease of the revenue. So if my decrease was 50,000 euro, for example, and I am in the first range, I will have 20% of 50 million. That makes 10,000 euro. This measure was asked by many companies, and the money, most of the money already arrived in 1 week. They get the money on the bank account. Okay, we can move to slide number 3. The special measure regarding wage integration treatments. I think that many of the other European countries had this measure as well. it's helping the company that in the lockdown, of course, didn't need the employees, and so the state is giving a 9-week layoff, so the employees can stay home, not paid by the company but by the government. Of course, they give them a small treatment. We're talking about an amount little less than 1,000 euro. So I would say it's a kind of a survival salary, but it's something that permit to the employees to have a salary and the company to save, of course, the cost of the salary. Recently, there was given an extension of another 9 weeks, 4 weeks plus 5. So the period covered will be 18 weeks, that is 4 months. There was a problem because the Italian Social Security entity, INPS, was really late in paying this treatment. Fortunately, some company could advance this treatment to the employees, and of course then decrease this amount from the Social Security payment. But many companies decided not to anticipate to give this advance. So many families was really in trouble for this. This was a big problem. Okay, I think we can move to number 4. Yes, this is the tax credit for the lease payment for non-residential use, business rent. Of course, in the shutdown, many companies, big cost for them was the rent to pay, the lease to pay, and so an help was needed, especially for the company that really had a complete shutdown. And in fact, if the decrease of the sales is over 50%, they can obtain for 3 months, March, April, and May, a 60% tax credit based on the monthly rent. One condition is that the monthly rent must be paid. So you can obtain the tax credit only if you pay to the building owner the lease of the month. And another interesting way of introduction that was introduced was that this credit can be given to the landlord. So I pay only 40% of the lease rent, and I give to the landlord this tax credit. There is a procedure on the tax agency site. You put the tax code of both companies, and this was a smart way, because many companies have large tax credits, so they cannot use another tax credit. They cannot receive an help, a quick financial help. So there was another way to obtain the measure. Okay, this is only given to, it's aimed to small companies, so below the 5 million euro of sales. Okay, let's go to number 5, VAT rate reduction. Yes, I will be very quick on this because the topic was taken, but no legislative provision at the moment was enacted. So maybe something that will be done in September. We hope so, because it would be really a strong help to start to restart the consumption in the way back to a normal situation after the COVID. But nothing at the moment. Okay, let's go to the last measure I would like to talk, which is The number 6, the capital reinforcement of medium-sized enterprises, companies. Yes, it is aimed to medium-sized, so company that stay below 5 and between 5 and 50 million of turnover. So not the little, not the big company, but the medium-sized. And what is the kind of the measure of the help? It's given to the shareholder. The shareholder that will inject in the company fresh money as a capital stock will receive a tax credit in his personal tax return. The amount, the rate of the tax credit is 20%, but can arrive to 50% for startup companies. There is, of course, a limit, which is 2 million of a new share capital. So this means 400,000 tax credit. And there is, of course, the company cannot give dividends in the next 3 years if this measure is activated. It's understandable because the money must remain in the company. And they cannot even pay any dividend in the same period. So up to year 2023, they cannot sell the shares, the shareholders, and the company cannot pay any dividend. Okay, that's it. I don't know if there are some questions.
We will have this, Riccardo, we will have this Q&A session after all the presentations. So therefore, there are already a few questions, but let's do that afterwards. So then basically I would hand over to France. Thank you very much, Riccardo. And please, Jean-Benoit, go ahead. Jean-Benoit.
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. I'm glad that you are back.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I am Jean-Benoit Monet from France. I am Executive Committee Board Member of Englobally and the Managing Partner of Orcom H3P and the Head of International Business Solutions. I am with Charlotte de Guigné, the Manager of International and Labor Law Department at Orcom. To talk about Orcom has 5 main skills: accounting, business support, HR activities, tax advisory and compliance, audit, and financial analysis. Our ambition is to support entrepreneurs throughout the life of their project with a 360 degrees tailored approach, providing advisory, accounting, and auditing services with a cross-border solution across Europe, Africa, America, and Asia. We are almost 800 professionals, 50 partners, and our strength is that we have a dedicated team for international support with more than 200 professionals, and we have 4 offices in China, 3 offices in the US, and 1 office in the UK. We have also a Japan desk located in Paris. We have many sectors on which we are working, and we have a global coverage for infrastructure, energy, utilities, real estate, media, audiovisual, industry, public sectors, and all the services. Now let's talk about the COVID-19 French measures. In order to face such a crisis as other countries, France decided to support businesses through helps oriented to finance new measures to protect the economy and employment. The idea was and is to provide liquidity to the market and to all sectors. French state injected and is always injecting money to support working capital, OPEX and CAPEX. In France, we have 4 key measures. The first one is a state-guaranteed loan scheme. The second one is the long-term partial activity model. The third one is the collective performance agreement. And the fourth is deferrals of payments for social and tax contributions. The idea of this webinar is to present you an overview of these key points on each measure. And of course, we will remain at your disposal if you have any demands today you could have at the end of this webinar or after. Let's move on to the first point, the state guaranteed loan scheme. You can move. Yeah, thank you. In last March, the finance law was amended for 2020 regarding the specific point, which is the state guaranteed loan scheme. According to this amendment, the French state may guaranteed loans granted by credit institutions, finance companies and crowdfunding lenders from March 2020 till December 2020 to non-financial undertakings registered in France. The terms and conditions of the state guaranteed loans are, first, a maximum amount. This maximum amount is 25% of the business's turnover excluding tax of the last financial years, generally 2019. And for companies funded on or after the 1st January 2019, for which there is no legal financial statement published, the maximum amount is estimated on the basis of the French payroll for the first 2 years of activity. The purpose of the AGL's funds from the state guaranteed loan do not have to be allocated to a specific purpose. It is not possible to refinance earlier loans with state guaranteed loans, and the state guaranteed loans are generally considered as new money loans. Regarding the duration and the amortization, state guaranteed loans are automatically including a new 1-year deferral. That means that the borrower has nothing to repay for the first 12 months, and at the end of that year, the borrower has the right to decide on the duration of the amortization of the loan, up to a maximum of 5 additional years. For the interest rate and margin, there is no legal provision, either in the law or in the decree, which regulates the interest rates of loans. The cost of loan is the addition of the interest rate of the relevant bank and the fee of the state guarantee. All businesses are eligible to this model, whether incorporated or not, exception for credit institutions and finance companies, as well as real estate civil companies. Let's continue with Charlotte de Guigné, the manager of our International and Labor Law Department, who will present you our social measures.
Thank you, Jean-Benoît. Hello, everybody. I'm Charlotte de Guigné, and I'm going to talk to you about the other social measures regarding COVID-19 from France. Can we change the slide, please? Thank you. So, to begin with, we are going to talk about the long-term partial activity scheme. From the very beginning of COVID-19, France used a measure that already exists, which was partial activity scheme. And this long-term partial activity measure is quite the same. Can we move the slide, please? Thank you. So thanks to a law of the 19th of June 2020, some industries know a slower recovery. And this is why from July the 1st of 2020, the government wanted companies to be able to benefit from a long-term partial activity. This will concern companies facing a lasting reduction of activity due to COVID-19, but whose sustainability is not compromised. This measure would imply, first, to negotiate and conclude a collective agreement with the trade union when they exist. Also consult the staff representatives that we now call the CSE. And what's important to notice to do so is that the employer must make commitments to maintain employment. This measure concerns agreement that will be sent to the administration till June the 13th, 2022. So as you can notice, this measure is going to concern companies who are facing long-lasting difficulties. Okay, can you change the slide, please? Thank you. So the employer can reduce his employees' working time and work duration with this measure, but this is when he can't ensure them a full volume of activity. So the employee gets a compensation for this reduction of activity, and the employer gets also an allowance from the state. This measure aims at avoiding social plans and mass redundancies. But you have to note that the agreement has to be checked and authorized by the French Labour Administration. What's also important to be noted with that measure is that to benefit from long-term partial activity, the company will have to keep at least 60% of her activity. So it means to declare 40% of unworked hours maximum to the administration. So long-term partial activity will not be granted for total closure. Regarding the compensation, the employee will get 84% of his net salary, and the employer, on the other hand, will get at least 80% state allowance. What you will also have to do if you need to set up this long-term partial activity is to do a quarterly report that will have to be presented to the CSE. Just for the record, CSE is your staff representatives in the company. So change slide, please. Thank you. So now we'll move on to collective performance agreements. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in this time of crisis, and especially with COVID-19, this measure that already existed actually is being used more and more by companies because it aims at meeting the needs related to the operation of the company, but also preserving employment or developing employment. Usually used to adapt their performance to the market fluctuation, companies can now use CPA in various types of situations. Next slide, please. So what's interesting here is that companies of any size, any form, and any business line can conclude CPA. CPA will also companies to change and organize work duration, but also change salary and adjust conditions of occupational and geographical mobility. But to be able to do so, companies have to negotiate majority agreements. Majority agreements are to be negotiated with trade unions most of the time. And most of the time it's also quite a long process. Okay, you can change slide, please. Thank you. To be able to set up collective performance agreements, companies will first have to inform their employees. Then we have two possibilities. Either the employee will accept the change or he will refuse it. In case of acceptance, then the agreement will implement automatically. It means that its provision will automatically replace the clause of the employment contract, even if there's a contradiction between the two. In case of refusal, the employer can choose to dismiss the employee. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, As you can see in this measure, there are a lot of benefits and a few disadvantages. Regarding benefits, these agreements allow to set up free content. Indeed, you can set inside even provisions in opposition to employees' labor contract. There is also no need to justify by economic reasons. Indeed, as I told you, any companies of any form, any size, etc., can negotiate such an agreement. It also allows to impose various change in labor contracts for salary, for example, but also work durations or duties. And most of the time, when you need to change salary, work duration, or duties of French employees, you have to negotiate with the employee directly, and it's sometimes quite complicated. So this measure allows a lot of flexibility. In case of refusal, you don't have to do a dismissal regarding the economic procedure. Dismissed employee will be able to benefit from an employment benefit scheme. There's also a low litigation risk. This is why this measure is quite interesting. And there's no required authorization from the administration. Regarding disadvantages, there's a necessity to conclude a majority agreement. And as I told you earlier, concluding such an agreement is sometimes long and difficult. You also have to contribute to the dismissed employee's personal training account. We call it CPF. Next slide, please. Thank you. One last thing you have to know regarding collective performance agreement is that since we're asking collective efforts, we are changing maybe salaries, maybe work duration, maybe duties of the employee. It's also asked, well, employers are also asked to make efforts to be able to conclude such agreements. So now let's move on to deferrals of payment for social contributions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So till March 2020, employers could defer payment for social contributions based on salaries. For March, April, and May 2020, the deferral were granted for every companies. For June, a preliminary request had to be submitted to the administration. For July 2020, deferral is still allowed, but it becomes an exception. Only deferrals for employers' contributions are allowed for companies which are facing persistent difficulties due to the epidemic crisis. A preliminary request must be submitted to the administration to be authorized to do so. Thank you very much. So this was a quick scope of the different French measures we have for partial activity and any deferrals of payments. I now hand over to the PBS team and Marcel Miro. Thank you very much.
Hello to everyone. This is Marcel Miro from PBS Spain. I'm here together with Nicola Cashin and Fabian Mozo. We have already been gently introduced by Matthias. Thanks, Matthias, for it. I just want to make a short presentation of PBS. Our firm is one of the founder companies of Englobally Group. We hold offices in Madrid and Barcelona with 46 professionals in total, and is also the entrance door to Latin America. Our professionals have different international backgrounds, broad experience, speak several languages, and can offer true international assistance. PBS offers mainly accounting, payroll, and tax compliance services, as well as IT solutions, which are our core business, focused on international companies. We render services to clients of all kinds of sizes, from 1-month payroll setups right through to large companies with many employees. Among the clients that have placed their trust in us, we are proud to include important companies of groups listed on the Nasdaq and other international stock markets. Nevertheless, our range of clients varies from small, medium, and big companies. So now, Nicola will continue with the labor measures. So Nicola, it's your turn now, please.
Thank you very much, Marcel, and good morning to everyone. I'll be talking you through the main measures put in place by the Spanish government from an HR and employment related perspective in order to protect public health in general, but also to save as many jobs as possible. These measures were initially taken when the state of alarm was declared on the 14th of March, which now feels like it was a lifetime ago, to be honest. They've been changed, adjusted or added to ever since then, and they've been adapting to the country's sanitary, social and economical circumstances at all times. Although the state of alarm came to an end on the 21st of June, some of the measures that were initially taken are still in place. The image that we've provided on this slide is an example of the measures that were initially adopted in Spain. You'll be able to see there measures such as social distancing, frequent hand washing, wearing face covers in public so that masks were available for the use of health workers, although I have to say that this has now changed and that face masks must be worn at most times in Spain. Next slide, please. In order to protect as many jobs as possible, the Spanish government authorised 2 types of temporary suspension of employment contracts, which are known as ERTEs in Spain. ERTEs can be applied totally, in which case the employment contracts are fully suspended throughout the duration of the ERTE, or they can also be part-time, in which case the employee's working hours are reduced to adapt to the circumstances. During the ERTE, employees receive payment of unemployment benefits from the Spanish government. There are 2 different types of ERTEs available at the moment, which are ERTEs due to major force directly related to COVID-19, and the other type of ERTE is an ERTE due to economic, technical, structural, organizational, or production-related reasons, also deriving from COVID-19. Both of these temporary measures already existed in Spain, but the whole process was adapted to make it more straightforward and definitely a lot quicker due to the pandemic. The main difference between the 2 types of ERTEs, apart from the fact that the process to apply when due to major force is a lot quicker, is that they are also the most beneficial for the employer due to the possibility of applying the exemption or reduction of Social Security contributions throughout the duration of the ERTE. The percentage of the Social Security contribution exemption has varied each month, and it also depends on the company's headcount. The reduction is higher for companies with less than 50 employees. The variation of the exemption each month is due to the government promoting a gradual return to work when possible. The higher the number of employees that return to work, the higher the Social Security incentive that can be applied. I would now like to explain the main aspects of each type of ERTE. ERTEs due to major force were granted if employers' activity had been directly forbidden or limited by the government due to the pandemic. This applied to businesses such as bars, restaurants, and museums, for example, or if they were directly affected by restrictions on transport, movement of people or goods that had also been regulated by the government. They could also be requested if there were urgent and extraordinary situations due to infection of the workforce or due to their quarantine if directly ordered by the Public Health Service. Although previously authorised for the duration of the state of alarm, they've now been permitted until the 30th of September, which is a great help to all businesses affected by the pandemic. After the 30th of September, if the company's activity is still affected by the pandemic, an ERTE for economic, technical, structural and production-related reasons must be requested. So we'll now move on to the ERTEs due to economic, technical, organizational, and production-related reasons, which is also on this slide. The process to request the ERTE, this kind of ERTE, is slightly more complex and time-consuming than the previous type, but it was also simplified greatly. It's more complex as negotiations with the employees via their representatives must take place, but ultimately, even if an agreement isn't reached, the employer can unilaterally request the ERTE. Following the publication of Royal Decree 24/2020 on the 26th of June, Social Security payments have also been reduced for employers who request this type of ERTE. In both cases, so for both types of ERTEs, the following applies. Overtime cannot be carried out by employees. Onboarding new hires is completely forbidden. The company's activity cannot be outsourced to a third party. And until the 30th of September, employees will receive payment of unemployment benefits regardless of if they would normally qualify for such payments. And also, there won't be an impact at all on any rights previously accrued by the employee regarding the duration of benefits payable. The employer must maintain employment levels during 6 months, so dismissals cannot take place within this time frame unless they are justified disciplinary reasons, and these reasons cannot be related in any way to the pandemic. Next slide, please. We've included this slide to highlight the difference and also similarities between the two types of ERTEs. So you can see graphically there are two types of ERTEs, one due to major force related to COVID-19, which is applicable until the 30th of September, and the other, which is an ERTE due to economic, technical, organisation and production related grounding to COVID-19. And then I've listed the requirements that are applicable to both ERTEs, and which I mentioned previously, which is overtime being forbidden, new hires can't be onboarded, etc. Next slide, please. This slide is really self-explanatory. It's a list of other measures that have been implemented by the Spanish government, such as recommending home working for during the whole of the state of alarm and extended until the 21st of September. The adaptation of working hours under exceptional circumstances, such as to care for a minor or another dependent. Healthcare centres remained open to attend the elderly only. The calculation of the duration of temporary contracts was interrupted and their end date was extended by the duration of the state of alarm. Sick leave was granted to employees who were not sick but had been ordered to isolate by the health service. The government also offered the possibility to defer Social Security payments at a reduced interest rate or to request a moratorium of payments free of charge for 6 months. This applied to contributions for the months of March, April and May. Also, an extraordinary benefit was put into place for self-employees affected by the pandemic. It's also been extended until the 30th of September for those who need it. Those affected economically by the pandemic were also permitted to recover their pension plans. This was applied for those who found themselves unemployed suddenly, business owners who were affected by the pandemic, and also to self-employed who were similarly affected. The term to file appeals regarding procedures during the pandemic was extended to 1 month after the state of alarm had finished. So that was extended until the 21st of July. Another measure is regarding the safety in the workplace. When home working is not possible, of course, companies must ensure a safe environment for their workforce by applying different measures such as allowing for social distancing, frequent cleaning of premises, etc. I think that covers everything. I'll now hand you over to my colleague Fabian, who will provide further information regarding the measures applied from a tax perspective. Thank you very much, and over to you, Fabian.
Thank you, Nicola. Good morning, everyone. I'm Fabian Mozo, and I will explain you the fiscal and financial support measures, the most significant ones that have been approved by the Spanish government until now. These measures are basically a deferral of tax payments and to provide guaranteed state loans to business. The government has decided to defer tax payments and social security contributions. These measures will improve the liquidity Sorry, can you move the slide, please? Yes, that's the correct one. Perfect. The Spanish government has decided to defer tax payments and social security contributions. These measures will improve the liquidity position of the taxpayers. We have the same level of taxation, but these taxes will be paid later. So obligations are not cancelled, but are only postponed. The tax deferral measures approved are targeted specifically to small businesses. And this is because in Spain, there are around 3.3 million of enterprises, of which 3.1 million are small and medium-sized enterprises. The deferral approved allow self-employed and small entities to defer for 6 months the payment of their tax debts. The taxes affected are basically personal income tax, withholding tax, VAT, and corporate income tax installments. This defer applied also affect tax returns that not were allowed to pay before the approval of this royal decree. But basically, taxes withheld in payments to employees, professionals, landlords, and corporate income tax installments. These taxes are also allowed now to pay with delay. But there are some restrictions in terms of maximum amounts and maximum size of beneficiaries entities. Can you move slide, please? The restrictions imposed by now on the referral are the following ones. In terms of time, it was limited only to those payments due between mid-March and the end of May, basically during the state of alarm and the lockdown. In terms of warranty, the referral applications below 30,000 euros can be made without contributions of warranty. So there's a limit, and if we need to have a deferral for a higher amount, then it's necessary to have a bank warranty letter. So there's a total of 30,000 euros of debt for having this warranty without warranty. In terms of size, the referral scheme was limited to companies with revenues of less than 6 million euros the previous year. So the beneficiaries must pay interest from the month 4 of the referral. According to the estimations made by the government, that deferral could boost liquidity of the entities. The fiscal policy permits deferral of tax payments until the second half of the year, when the economy is expected to have recovered. The good news is that these measures almost benefit all the small and medium-sized entities that have an average annual revenue less than 2 million euros. And the bad news is that it will leave out bigger small entities and some large companies, which are also having very important liquidity problems because of the restrictions of the size of the beneficiaries. The second measure approved in Spain would be the state-guaranteed loans. Our government approved a 100,000 million euros package of measures to fund business through state-guaranteed loans and credit lines. These measures will provide guarantees for a maximum amount of 100 million to be granted by credit institutions to finance business to meet their cash obligations. So that basically, in order to manage invoices, to pay the working capital requirements, to pay expiration dates on financial tax obligations, or on any other cash needs. These guarantees will be managed by the Spanish Official Credit Institute, together with the cooperation of the private banks. So it's a risk-sharing mechanism between the private financial institutions and the public sector through the Spanish Official Credit. Beneficiaries of the guarantees, not only small, medium, but also large companies, can apply for the guarantee loans as from mid-March until the end of September. Business who need cash should address their applications directly to their banks. The Spanish government has approved different tranches of this package of loans during these last months until now. So the detail more or less of the beneficiaries of this are small entities basically, and self-employed persons. That will be 67,000 euros, large companies 25 millions, and also tourism sector with to 10.5 euros. As a summary, we have explained the most important measures in response to COVID in Spain until now that have been approved. All are focused to ensure liquidity to keep economic activity using different instruments. So these measures include the government-sponsored temporary layoffs, the deferral of taxes, official credits. And according to the Bank of Spain, the highest rated policy tool is the tax deferral scheme, followed by the temporary layoffs and the state guarantee loans. And that's our little review of the measures approved in Spain. I'm going to hand over now to Caterina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabian from PBS, to hand over. Hello, my name is Katharina Knollenborg, and I'm working with Dominik Vondenberg as tax advisors at NHS. I will just give you a brief introduction of our company. Our office is located in Düsseldorf, and we also have a small one in Cologne. Next to our local clients, we also have a strong focus on international clients, and especially on Japanese ones. We are around 25 employees with 4 different nationalities. We are offering a variety of services, amongst others, for example, accounting and business reporting, payroll activities, tax advisory and compliance, audit, management consulting, and financial analysis. In the next 15 minutes, we will talk shortly about the following topics, which are relevant in order to increase liquidity for the companies. So I will talk about the first 2 topics, short-term work and how to reduce tax payments. And my colleague Dominik will follow up with the current VAT changes and the bridging program, which might be suitable for some companies. Short-time work has already been existent before the crisis, but the conditions to apply for it have been relieved currently. Short-time work benefit replaces part of the lost net income when reducing working hours, so it relieves companies from the burden of paying salaries. Short-time work benefit is calculated on the basis of the net loss of salary of each employee. The usual benefit is 60% of the loss of salary, and with at least 1 child, the benefit increases to 67%. The amount of reimbursement depends on children, month of working in short time, and the percentage of reduction in working hours. In order to apply for short-time work, at least 10% of the staff must be affected by lack of work. The maximum claim to receive short-term work is 12 months, and it can be extended to a maximum of 24 months under special circumstances. The Workers' Council needs to agree to the introduction of short-term work. There must be an exact documentation about the actual loss of working hours, and short-term work will only be paid for regularly employed people, which are subject to social security contributions. So no mini-jobbers nor students will receive short-term work benefit. The consequences are the following. So employees who receive short-term work are obliged to submit individual income tax returns at the end of the year, in which short-term work is considered in their progression provision. So it increases their tax rate. The employer also needs to include the reimbursement of short-term work in their net income, so it's taxable for them. As already mentioned, there are some new regulations from the government. Short-term work benefit increases if the employee has a loss of working hours of at least 50%. For the first 3 months, the reimbursement will be as usual, so 60% or 67%. And from the 4th to the 6th month, there's an increase to 70% or 77% retrospectively. And for the 7th to the 12th month, the benefit increases up to 80% or 87%. And these increases shall apply until the end of the year. Most of the companies have already used this method of short-term work, or they are still using that. So, however, we would like to point out that it's important to check whether the requirements for applying for short-term work are still fulfilled. 10% of the staff must be affected by the introduction of short-term work benefit. And if those requirements are no longer met, the company should consider the possibility of reinterpreting the original application. Another measure the government has implemented to increase liquidity is to avoid tax payments or pay it later. Either tax prepayments can be reimbursed, or tax payments will be deferred, or companies make use of a net loss carried backward to prior years. Tax prepayments like the VAT extension payment for 2020, the special advance payment called 1 out of 11, can be paid back by filing a corrected nil declaration, for example. Furthermore, tax prepayments can be reduced because of new forecast results for 2020. Prepayments which already have been paid can be claimed back. If the tax return for 2019 is not handed in yet, tax losses made in 2020 can be carried backward by using a so-called lump sum loss carried backward to the prior year. So prepayments for 2019 will be reduced or paid back fully. It is also possible to defer tax payments like VAT, corporate tax, and income tax without any accrued interest. Companies only need to demonstrate shortly that they are directly affected by the crisis, and enforcement measures will be suspended when deferring those payments. And social security payments can be deferred as well. In the case of wage tax, a deferral is not possible, as wage tax is determined at the level of the employee and not the employer. However, there's the possibility to apply for a deadline extension for wage tax application of a maximum of 2 months. Practically, companies should cancel the direct debit mandate at the tax authorities to avoid automatic deductions and apply to deferments simultaneously. Then there's also the opportunity of net loss carried backward. Companies with expected losses due to the consequences of the crisis in this year will receive liquidity support by offsetting foreseeable losses against profits for 2019. Companies can also make direct use of the tax loss in 2020 and the tax return of 2019 by creating a tax reserve. Now I will hand over to my colleague Dominik, who is talking about the last part, VAT changes and the bridging program.
Okay, thank you, Katharina. I will move on with our next topic, the VAT changes. Very spontaneous and for everyone very surprising, the German government has decided to reduce the German VAT rate for the period July to December 2020. So in comparison to our friends in Italy, we already have a reduction of the VAT rate in Germany. Usually in Germany, the VAT rate is 90% and 7% on certain consumer goods and services such as local public transport, books and newspapers. And now for the period July to December 2020, the VAT rate will be reduced from 19% to 16% and from 7% to 5%. The German government hopes that this will give the German economy a positive impulse in this difficult time. And in order to determine the correct VAT rate, the date of delivery is irrelevant for deliveries and the performance period is relevant for other services. So for example, is the delivery date in August, then 16% VAT is applicable, and if the delivery date was, for example, in June, then 19% VAT is applicable, even if an invoice will be created during the period July to December 2020. And there's also a special regulation to support restaurants in this crisis, because VAT for meals in restaurants, which is usually 90%, will be reduced to 5% for the period July to December 2020, and for the period January to June 2020, the VAT rate will be 7% for meals and restaurants. This was created from the German government to support restaurants in this difficult time, as restaurants were closed for a long time in Germany. Then we can over to the next slide and to the next topic, the bridging program. In mid-June, the German government approved the so-called bridging aid for small and medium-sized companies. This is a program with a duration for the month June to August 2020, in which the German government reimburses a company certain expenses and costs for these 3 months. And this is a cross-sector program, so that any sector can or industry can apply for this assistance. But there are a number of conditions that must be met in order to qualify for this assistance. So, for example, companies whose sales in April and May 2020 were down by at least 60% compared to the sales in April and May 2019 due to Corona effects, and who had at least 1 employee in February 2020 are qualified to apply for this assistance. And there's something special for the application process, because the application can only be submitted by a certified tax advisor or a certified public accountant. So it's not possible for a company to submit this application by themselves. The start date was the 10th of July, and it is possible until the end of August to submit an application. Next slide, please. The maximum reimbursement amount is 150,000 for 3 months. This is for companies with more than 10 employees. The maximum reimbursement amount for companies with more than 5 up to 10 employees is 15,000 euro, and for companies with up to 5 employees, the reimbursement amount is 9,000 euro. And maybe at least an example, a company with a decline of sales less than 40% in comparison to the previous year results that it is not possible for this company to apply for this program because the decline of sales is less than 40%. But a company with a decline of sales of more than 40% but less than 50%, this results to a reimbursement of fixed operating costs up to 40%. And for example, a decline of more than 70% results to a reimbursement up to 80%. We think it is a good program of the German government to cover temporary costs, but however, there are some difficulties in the application process, because it is difficult to determine if a company is qualified to apply for this program. And of course, there will be costs for the companies for the application process, as they will not be able to submit the application by themselves, as only certified tax advisors are allowed to do. Okay, that's it from the German team, and now I hand over to Matthias again.
Yeah, thank you very much to all of you. I think that was quite interesting. We can definitely see that different countries, but the measures are quite comparable. So I see short-time work approaches. I see loans from the government. We see deferrals of taxes and social security contributions. And we see one-time payments of subsidies with a calculation which is probably afterwards more or less complicated. So basically, now it's time to start with our Q&A session. I just would like to motivate you to send me questions. You have this little chat option on your screen. So if you would like to ask question to the speaker, you can put your question there, and then I will take these questions and ask the individual people. So I have already received a few questions. So then let's start with that. So in order of the of this webinar, my first questions go to Ricardo. Ricardo, you were talking about these non-refundable contributions. Here's one question, and that is basically quite understandable. So what is happening if the company was set up recently and was not existing in that previous year?
Yes, thank you. Yes, what happens? It happens that was given to this newborn company a really small contribution, which is only 1,000 euro for individuals and 2,000 euro for companies. So because there is no possibility to compare April 2019 because they were not existing to April 2020. So this was the solution.
Okay. I have another question that is with regard to the tax credit given for share capital increase. So the question is that can that only be obtained by individual shareholders, or is that also possible if the shareholder is another company?
No, it is possible also for a company shareholders.
Okay, that's probably quite interesting for a lot of international investors in Italy as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Third question that was is around this VAT rate reduction. Actually, we understood that it is not decided, but is there any plan and any information whether it is planned to do that retrospectively? So if there is a change, or is that then is there nothing known?
No, I would exclude for practical reason any retrospective rules. We hope that the rule will come in September, not before September, but maybe could be too late. So there is also a possibility that will never happen. So we can just wait for what the government will decide in the next days.
Okay. So Italy is obviously an interesting country. So I have another question to you, Ricardo. Is there any immediate effect plan in terms of cash management? Because actually it seems that these tax credits taken is basically they are effective a little bit later. So it's a question: is there any immediate effect plan?
Well, there are, as well as other European countries, some opportunity for obtaining bank loans guaranteed by the state with low rates. I didn't focus on this because I imagine this is a common measure in every country. There is as well in Italy to give liquidity to companies. But you know, this is a loan, so it must be refunded. So many companies didn't ask for this loan sincerely because they say we don't want to have too many liabilities towards bank, and they ask only for non-refundable helps.
Okay, so these were the questions to Italy so far. Next questions, what I have, these are related to our friends from ORCOM A3B, Jean-Benoit and Charlotte. I have two questions here. The first question is about whether there is any other financial measure in addition to this state guaranteed loan scheme.
Thank you, Matthias. Yes, in addition to the 4 key measures presented for France, you have sector-specific measures. These measures are related to aeronautic sectors, automotive sector, constructions, health, culture, sports, and tourism. The French state has already financed nearly 500 billion euros, to which 100 billion will be added after the new measures announced just yesterday by our new Prime Minister. The proposed aid is intended to promote reindustrialization in a context of energy transition. In order to renew industrial facilities, companies will certainly benefit from debt refinancing arrangements and specific measures to maintain employment, but certainly in the same spirit as the transitional measures decided by the government during the crisis, especially for the partial time scheme. And we will have a new period for this partial time activity and partial activity scheme in the next few months. And especially the Public Investment Bank, the BPI, will finance and manage or support funds dedicated by sector. Whether the aid is financial, social, or fiscal, it is all part of the definition of a global economic recovery plan to be defined in the next few months.
Okay. Okay, the other question is related and somehow expected from my point of view, because actually this CPA, that was kind of unique, I feel. Regarding this CPA, the question here from one participant is what kind of commitments the employer has to make?
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. Yes, indeed, collective performance agreement means collective efforts. So also, well, from the part of the employees, but also from the employers. So what could we expect from the employer? Well, most of the time, commitments have to be proportionate and negotiated. And most of the time, what is proposed is a decrease in employers' salary. You also find decrease in shareholders' dividends, but also commitments of the company to maintain employment and to avoid dismissals during the agreement's implementation, because CPA can be with fixed term or indefinite term. So all of these compensation can be set up in the agreement.
Okay. Okay, then I directly another question. It's related to the same topic, but a good question if you ask me. So what happens if the company in this CPA situation goes bankrupt? And they committed basically to the employees that they were basically, do they have to pay the compensation and even in bankruptcy in addition then, or how does that work? Do you have any idea? It's a little bit special question maybe.
Yes. Well, normally when a company goes bankrupt, you have very specific scheme to dismiss employees, and of course, unfortunately, CPA aims at avoiding dismissals, but if the company has no other choice but dismissing employees, well, it will have to respect the legal procedure for economic dismissals in that case. So, so must an employer pay compensation additionally? I would say I don't know what the person meant by saying that, but normally he'll have to pay, well, the employer will have to pay the legal compensation due in case of economic dismissals. But regarding the CPA, maybe it's possible to negotiate in the agreement a compensation in case of dismissals that would have happened during the agreements period. But once again, we are here in a specific situation of companies going bankruptcy. So I don't think that kind of compensation should apply. Well, it's something we'll have to look for.
Yeah, actually, so if the person who asked that wants to have more information or is interested in more detail, then of course there will be a possibility to do that. Actually, I explain about that later. So far, I would say, Charlotte, thank you very much, JB.
Thank you.
These were the question I have received for France. So therefore I would move on with my questions catalog here now to our friends from Barcelona, Marcel, Fabian, and Nicolas. Here I have actually one question here to Spain. You were talking about these bank guarantee for this in case of deferral of the tax payments, and I also understood that from a certain amount of money you need to get a bank guarantee. So the question is, because in other countries these, and I know that also from Germany, these bank guarantees are quite difficult to get. What is the situation in Spain about that?
Hello. Well, it's only necessary to provide with additional warranties when you need to ask for a deferral higher than 30,000 euros. Okay, so in that case, yeah, it's necessary if you want to have the tax deferral to provide the tax office with an additional warranty. It could be a bank warranty. It could be let's see. Building guarantee. It depends. You can negotiate with the tax administration the kind of warranty you have in order to show that you want to pay, and that's the warranty you can provide at that moment. Okay, it's let's see. According to the situation, it's a matter of negotiation of what's your equity position, what's the situation of the company, and negotiate with the tax office. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So that was basically the question I have for France, for Spain. Sorry, and then I have also some questions with regard to Germany, to my colleagues here in Düsseldorf. So the question is, here's one question about tax deferments. Which documents should be handed in to apply for the tax deferments at the tax authorities? So I would say this is probably a question to Katharina.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. Actually, there's not a lot to hand in, so you can just use an informal application and send it to the tax authorities and add a few sentences why your company is affected by the current crisis. And I think there are also some templates on the internet which you can use for that. So there are not a lot of documents needed here.
Okay. The other one is with regard to the VAT changes in Germany. So there's a specific example asked. So in July, we received an invoice from a lawyer with 19% for their services in June. And the question is here, is this invoice correct? So we understood that from July, 16% VAT must be taken into account. So I think it's a good question. Actually, Dominic, you were talking about deliveries, but this is more a question to services. So
yes, right. It's a good question. We already received a lot of these questions during the last days from our clients. So without having a closer look at the invoice, I would say that the invoice is correct. because it depends on the time of performance of the service. And yeah, in this special case, the service was in June. So yeah, the old VAT rate, so 90% is applicable. And yeah, if the service was done in July and not in June, then 16% VAT would be applicable.
That must be quite a big effort to change with these VAT rates, all these systems, right?
Yes, right, yes.
Because the invoicing systems and so on, so there's obviously there are a lot of things to do actually. Okay, so basically these were the questions I have received. I have here just basically have one more question just came in. It's about the bridging loan. There's one participant heard so many companies applied to the so-called house bank. Can the applicant get loans smoothly, or is it difficult to get these kind of loans? Do you can share some experiences about that?
I think in most of the cases, the house bank can also offer those loans of the KfW, so those KfW credits. So and because yeah, the conditions are a bit eased, so for the, getting those credits at the KfW bank, it might be a good opportunity to go first to the house bank and then get this loan indirectly from the KfW bank. But I don't know whether I covered the question.
Yeah,
clearly.
Exactly. Maybe I can add something, because this is obviously something what we have here more often. So you need to basically apply that with the house bank, and they do the rating of the company and so on, and they basically prove this request for a loan. And if they agree to that and they say, okay, this company is worthwhile to get this loan, then this what you said, the KfW does it. And the important current situation here, or the different situation now in Corona, is that the government is also giving up to 90% guarantees for such loans. So that of course makes the application of such loans at the currently much easier than before, if I may add that. Okay, I hope these answers to your questions were sufficient. As I said before, there's of course the chance to also add more questions after the seminar or in the next days. So if there are no further questions, and it looks like that so far, then I would probably say thank you very much to all the speakers from France, from Italy, from Spain, and from Germany. I think that was our first and globally webinar. I hope that all the participants liked it. Thank you very much to you for joining this webinar. In addition, I also would like to say thank you to our Indian network partners from ASA and Associates, with Rajiv Arya as partner, and his team, especially Kim, for organizing the technical part of this. That was outstanding, your support there, Kim. We will definitely do that together with you again. And yeah, and the last thing I have to say is that you will receive an email tomorrow with a recording of this webinar, and we will also include all the email addresses of the speakers. So as I said, that you can contact us at any time. So yeah, in the name of Globally and these 4 participating firms, I say thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to have you with us at the next webinar. Thank you very much, and bye-bye from Düsseldorf.